Today, you're going to be trying to make a rock, paper, scissors game. I will give you some starting code, but ideally, I want you to end up with something that looks a little bit like this. So the user can type in their guess up at the top, so rock. They can click play the game. The computer chose paper, got some pictures, the computer won, and then we've got some scores. So I can keep clicking play the game. And then I got a draw. Oh, the user's won. And as I keep clicking through, we can see the score keeps going up, the pictures change, and I can change my guess to something else if I want, and click again, and it keeps playing. So that's the idea for what you're aiming for by the end of it. Let's have a look at the code that's in our original rock, paper, scissors code that we looked at. So this is exactly the same link I gave you, which you were having a look at in the last task. You had a look at, and I think I asked you some questions about different parts of this code. Let's just have a quick look through it and talk about it in a bit more detail first of all. So on the HTML, we've got a text box, which is that one there. That's the box there. Then we've got a button that says on click play game, which is play the game, which is that button here. And we've got a computer choice label, which just has an ID of message there. Now, in the one that we've, the final one that I showed you, we'll be adding a bit more to this HTML because this is quite plain vanilla at the moment. But let's have a look at the actual functionality, what's going on behind the scenes in play game, because it's perhaps a little bit more complicated than you're used to. But not much. We have got a variable called comp choice or computer choice, which is basically going to be a random number between 0 and all the way up to 2. So that will correspond to what the computer has chosen. And then we've seen this before, Mathfloor will chop off any horrible decimals at the end. So comp choice is going to be either 0, 1 or 2. Then I've set up a sort of central variable called choices here, which has got rock, paper and scissors in it, which corresponds to 0, 1 and 2. Okay. And then what I'm doing is I'm putting that, the chosen, so comp choice, let's say they pick the middle one, which would have a number of 1. Okay, so that would be rock, paper, that would be paper. So comp choice would be 1, and we want to get paper out of here. So we would use choices with square brackets and 1 after it. Okay, so that is getting us our value, our chosen value from this variable, this array here. So choices is an array of words, rock, paper, scissors. And then that's getting written into the message div there, which is the computer choice. So the very first 4 lines are doing the choosing of the computer option there. So then we're saying to get the value that the user typed in, we're doing what we've done before. We're going and getting document.getElementById choice.value. So this is this text box here. It's got an ID of choice, and it's grabbing whatever they've typed in there and sticking it into user choice. Okay. And then in order to make our comparison a bit easier, rather than checking whether they've typed in rock or paper or scissors, we are just changing. If user choice was equal to rock, we're setting it to 0. And if user choice was equal to paper, we're setting it to 1. Otherwise, we're setting user choice to 2. Now, there was a question about that in the task you did last week, but let's go back to that question later on. So essentially, depending on whatever I've typed in here, my user choice will be a 0 or a 1 or a 2. Okay, so by the time we get to this point of the code, we've got 2 variables essentially called comp choice and user choice, and they're either 0, 1 or 2, both of them. So now we come to probably the most complicated if statement you've seen in JavaScript, definitely. We're checking, first of all, is comp choice equal to user choice? Now notice we use double equals. I'm pretty sure we've covered this in a previous lesson, but if we haven't, it's a good chance to recap it. This tests if comp choice is equal to user choice. It is different from a single equals. So a single equals in JavaScript and Python as well, and lots of other languages. A single equals is the assignment operator. So this is assigning user choice variable to be equal to 2. When we have two equals, it's basically saying, is it equal to? All right. So if we say, if comp choice is equal to user choice, we know it's a draw. So we can get them out of the way right at the start. Then it goes on to the next set. Else if, and then there's a whole load of stuff that's written here. Now, a couple of the questions on that task last week were asking what you thought this and meant. And a lot of you rightly said it meant and. So this is just looking at these first two terms here. We're saying if comp choice or the computer choice is equal to 0 and the user choice is equal to 1. So let's think about that. 0 was rock. So if computer was rock, but the user choice was paper, that must mean the user wins. Okay. And then we've got the other winning combinations here. So comp choice is 1 and user choice is equal to 2, and comp choice is 2 and user choice is equal to 0. So all the winning for the user anyway, choices are down here. But look at what we've separated them as. Now, if I try and, I'm going to muck around with my lines a little bit here. I'm not expecting you to write this. I've given this to you as well. Let's try and make it a little bit longer so it all fits onto one line. So those symbols that are chaining them together are these two pipe symbols. I bet you've never even used those before. But if you look on my keyboard, they are above the backslash. Okay, so if you press shift and backslash, you get those two pipe symbols. They basically mean an or. Okay, so we've got an and here and an or there. So we're saying it, basically we're saying comp choice is equal to rock and user choice is equal to paper, or comp choice is equal to paper and user choice is equal to scissors, or comp choice is equal to scissors and user choice is equal to rock. Those are the three conditions where the user wins. Then we can say if they haven't drawn or if the user hasn't won, we're pretty darn sure that the computer has won. Okay, and that's what happens. So let's just check this is working. So if I type in rock, play the game, it's told me I've won, but I don't know what the computer choice is until I press OK. Yes, so the computer choice was scissors, but rock blunt scissors, so I have won. Okay, so that was a little bit of an explanation as to what the code was doing in your starting code. I will give this to you for the next part of the task. Okay, so there are a couple of things I would like you to do. I have made a list. I'm just going to refer to my list. The things I would like you to add to the rock, paper, scissors, here are 5 things I'm suggesting. If you're aiming for like a grade B-, the first thing I'd like you to add is to prevent playing if you haven't typed anything in. And then, as you know, I love adding pictures to my games, so add some pictures for a grade B+. Then to get to a grade A, I'd like you to add both a computer score and a user score every time they score a point, every time the user wins or the computer wins. Step 4, to get a grade A star, is to add some pleasing CSS styles. And then for an A star, you can go and Google this. There are lots of other ways of adding extra options in there. I think you can play rock, paper, scissors, shotgun, or rock, paper, lizards, shotgun, lizards, Spock, or something like that. So if you're feeling like you really want to extend this, then go for the A star option. So we're going to look at the first one, prevent playing if you haven't typed anything in. That's going to be the first one. So let's go back to the JS bin. Now, the very first thing I actually want to do is get rid of these alerts, because I really do hate it that after you've chosen something, you play the game, it tells you you've won, but it hasn't actually told you what the computer has chosen. So we can prevent that if I add a new div here. I'm going to call it results. So you should be pretty familiar with adding these divs in now. Okay, so that's where the result is going to be. And then we are going to do exactly like we've done here, except we're going to put them down. Instead of the alerts, we're going to say document.getElementById results equals draw. And I've got a rogue bracket there. And so what I can do is I'm just going to copy that, Control-C, put that there. I'm going to put user wins, and then I'm going to do the same, copy that, put it down here, and we'll see computer wins. And then all of a sudden it just becomes a little bit more playable. So if I choose rock, play the game, computer chose rock, so it's a draw, scissors, user wins, draw. So I haven't got any of those alerts coming up. So that's the very first thing. I'll send you this link, okay, so you've got it already. Okay, the first thing we were going to do is prevent it from working if you haven't typed anything in yet. Now, one of the questions in last week's task was to say, well, what happens if a user doesn't type anything in? So if I just click play the game, it tells me the computer wins. Oh, no, it tells me the user wins. Oh, no, it tells me it's a draw. Well, you can see from this that it assumes that the user has chosen scissors. Why is that? It's because if we look over here, it just checks. If the user is equal to choice is equal to rock, then set it to 0. Else, if they've typed in paper, set it to 1. Anything else, set the user choice to 2, which is the scissors. Now, I haven't marked everyone's, but so far I haven't spotted a single person who noticed that it assumes that you've typed in scissors. Okay. So the very first task to get us to a B- is to check, before we do anything else, check that they've typed something in. Now to do that, I'm going to put it up here. Basically, I want to do what's called a nested if statement. So I will be saying if user choice is equal to nothing. So nothing is basically 2 quotes next to each other with nothing else in it, okay? And then open my curly brackets, push them onto a new line. And now I might as well just put an alert saying, please enter something. Okay, in this case, an alert is fine because we don't actually want it to carry on. But we still want the rest of this to execute if they have typed something in. So we'll need an else, open a curly bracket, but the closing curly bracket needs to not be there. It needs to be all the way down here. Okay, now, it's slightly annoying that the curly brackets seem to disappear. Now, what might help is if I just indent this a little bit. It's letting me indent it. Essentially, this part of the if will run if I haven't typed something in, but nothing else will. Okay, so if I haven't typed something in, I should just get alert, please enter something. Actually, do you know what I might do? Just thinking out loud, I'm going to put my curly bracket actually right down here because I don't want it to play the game at all. No scores, no nothing until I've typed something in. So I'm just going to put end of if user hasn't typed anything. I like putting little messages to myself like that. And I'm just going to put end of function because if you're getting confused about all the different curly brackets, sometimes that's quite a good thing to do. Okay, right, let's try it. So I'm not going to type anything. I'm going to click play the game and it says, please enter something. And my computer choice still runs. Why is that? Why is my computer choice? Oh, because that's happening up here, isn't it? I'll ignore that one for now. Okay, but notice none of the scores or the you've win happens. But if I type in rock, and it says user wins and it's working. Okay, so that's the very first thing to do. So we're adding a new if else bit up here, and then we're closing the final curly bracket just before the end of the function. Okay, do test that it works before you do that. The next thing is to go and get some images. So that's B-. To get a B+, we're going to add some pictures. So just like we've got an array of words, we want to get an array of images. Okay, I am going to pause while I go and grab some images because that's quite boring for you to sit and watch. So I will just... Okay, I've just gone and found my images, which are these really long URL ones, which I tend to ask you to avoid. But today I was feeling a bit adventurous. So these are 3 images, but make sure they're in the right order. So my first image is a rock, second image is a paper, and third one is scissors. Otherwise you're going to get really confused. So because we're going to need two images, one for mine and one for the computer, I'm going to need to add, let's put it in the HTML, in between the computer choice message and the result, we are going to add image source equals nothing because we don't know what it is at the moment, and then set one is going to be the ID is going to be called my image. I put a capital I in there for mine, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing for, I'm just going to call it comp image. Okay. So what we'll have now is when we know whether, actually, as soon as we know what the comp choice is and the user choice is, we can start filling in those images. So we can do exactly the same sort of thing we've done here, copying that. I'm going to stick it down here to keep them together. We're going to say document.getElement by ID my image. We've done this before, so this shouldn't be too new to you. And we're going to say dot source is equal to, and then we're going to use the array name, which was images. And then because this is my image, in square brackets, I'm going to use the user choice. Just test that that works for now. Okay, so if I choose, say, rock, play the game, there we go, the picture of the rock appears. Okay, so we now need to do exactly the same thing for, not my image this time, but for comp image. And we are going to change this to comp choice. So if I run this now, I'm going to choose paper this time, play the game. There we go. I've got paper. The computer has got rock, and user wins. So already we're starting to get something that's working quite nicely. Yes. So I don't want to give it away how to do the next bit. So you're all fine with doing CSS styles. I've seen some brilliant work, so I know that you're getting good at that. To add a score, I'll give you a hint. You can come onto Teams if you want me to walk through this with you. But the hint is, if you're going to create a score that gets updated every time you play the game, start off by putting var my score equals 0 up at the top. That's what's called a global variable, and we'll also have comp score equals 0. So the things you'll need to do is down here, every time we decide whether a user is 1 or a computer is 1, we're going to be adding 1 to my score and comp score. But you will also need to make sure you've got some kind of div on the HTML, and then you'll need to write to it. So just like we're writing here, computer wins or user wins, we'll also need to write to a div that says what the computer score or my score is. I'll leave that one with you. I kind of want to give you a bit of a challenge here. As always, get onto Teams, ask me a question, or email me if you're so close and you just can't spot what it is. But hopefully by now, we've been doing this for about 6 or 7 weeks. I'm hoping that you're getting a bit better at spotting your own errors. Okay, have fun, and I will speak to you soon.